Hello, everybody. How you doing this morning? It's a beautiful morning here. It's kind of glaring cloudy, but it's a beautiful day. It's nice and it's not too cold. It's beautiful. I'm over here at the school pavilion where Carter goes to school, right beside my house. It's kind of a nice place to have the lesson today. Anyways, I hope everybody's doing well. As you can see, I need a haircut. I don't know if you guys have been getting your hair cut or not. Actually, Louise is about ready to start cutting my hair, which she said she never wanted to do before. But I didn't shave either, but I can do that myself, but I just didn't do it. Anyways, you should see my neighbor. He's kind of went into like hermit stage. His beard is like, and his hair is like this. He looks like a big cute red Q-tip. So I don't know what's going on with him, but anyways, he definitely needs a weed eater or something. But anyways, today's lesson is on Ruth. And I had a couple different ideas about Ruth, but as I was thinking about it last night, it kind of changed. I was going to say about how things don't fit together. I was going to have Alex put on clothes that don't fit, like one that's too small and one that's too big, because Ruth had to move to a different country where she wasn't raised. But I wanted to talk a little bit more on being faithful, and it's just an accountability that she went through, and she was faithful to her mother-in-law. So anyways, the story started out with Naomi and her husband Elimelech, which means God is king. That would be a good name to have, right? And they had two sons. Okay, one was named Mahlon and one Kilian. And guess what their names mean? And that'd be kind of scary about these guys, because their names mean like puny, weak, sickly, stuff like that. And that's not a good name to have, but as you see later, the names kind of panned out for what happened to them. So anyways, there was a famine and where they lived near Bethlehem. And so they moved to Moab, where there was food. So as they were there, they had their two sons, and both of them got married to Moabite women, which was kind of frowned on, but not necessarily forbidden, because they weren't in the Jewish realm. They had other gods, actually. They didn't believe in God. I don't even know what their God was, but they weren't following God. And so they married Ruth and Orpah, is what Mahlon married Ruth, and Kilian married Orpah. Now, they were there for about 10 years, and Naomi's husband died. And then a few years later, Kilian and Mahlon died. I got some boys for advice for you. Don't ever go to Moab. It seems like the men die when they go there, so don't ever go to Moab. Wherever it is now, I'm not sure. So anyways, all these three women were there, and they didn't have husbands. Naomi was getting pretty old now, and so she was going to return to her homeland because she found out that they had food again. I don't know, this is 10, 12 years later, maybe something like that. So she was going to go back, and the two daughters-in-law were going to go with her. But anyways, she said, no, you turn around and go back to your family. Okay? And so she didn't want them to have to come to a land where they were not familiar with. So she said, go back to your family. And so, okay, Orpah said, okay, I'll probably go back to my family. Now, you're thinking, widows aren't really the ones that everybody goes chasing after, because they're just, they've already been married, whatever. But then women weren't really that looked up to, as they're more like property than anything else, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But anyways, Ruth said, no, I want to stay with you. And this is kind of what changed my thought about this lesson today. Ruth wanting to go to a foreign country. Now, girls, think about this. You're not going to get married yet. But anyways, think about if your husband died or your family died, and you're supposed to go back to a different country, different language, probably different lifestyles, different food, different everything else, different God. What caused Ruth to want to go back with? He says, no, I'm going to cling with her. She said, I will go back to your people, your gods. I will serve your God, and I will be with your people, is what she said. So what I'm thinking is, whenever they moved to Moab and they married these women, like I said, she wasn't serving God. She was serving a different God. And she might have seen something better in the God that they were, the real God. which her husband was serving at the time. So she said, I would rather go with you. And another reason, I think, is she wanted to be loyal to Naomi because Naomi was getting older and who was going to take care of her? And so she thought, somebody needs to take care of this woman because, she's getting pretty old and somebody has to. So she went back. And so they went back to Bethlehem, where she's from. And so she went back and said, oh, Naomi's back. And she said, no, don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because of the bitterness that's in her heart. And the name Mara means, I can find it here. You see, the choice because of the explanation of the bitterness and all the bad things that are going on. It's kind of like, this is a terrible thing. So that's kind of what Mara stood for. So anyways, she said to tell Ruth, she told Ruth to go out into the threshing fields and pick up some grain for them to eat. So as he was out there, this young man named Boaz seen her. And Boaz would have been, I think, a nephew of Naomi's. And he was called like a kinsman redeemer, which is somebody, there's two of them in this family. He was like the second in line that actually takes care of family members when they're in distress. And so that was kind of one of his family titles. I don't know if we have that now. I guess people take care of other people's families whenever something happens. But we have a church to take care of that now too, so which helps out a lot. That's kind of what the church is set up for, so helping each other out as a family of God. Anyways, Boaz noticed her out in his grain field, and he recognized that it was Naomi and Naomi's daughter-in-law. So I guess he thought she was kind of cute, and so he went over to talk to her and said, "Oh, I appreciate what you did for Naomi coming back. You be blessed." So he gave her a whole bunch of grain and stuff. So she went back and told Naomi this and said, "Well, come back and tonight, as he goes to the threshing floor." Now, whenever they're threshing, they stay there overnight, some of them, okay, because they don't go back to home, because the next morning they want to get up and start doing it again. Now, you realize that, Ruth is going to be picking up stuff that the widows used to go out and pick up grain that was scattered or left over or spilled or whatever. They didn't go to actually thresh the grain. So that's what Ruth is doing. That's what widows could do, go out and pick up the leftover grain or whatever that was spilled or wasn't picked up or whatever. And so whenever Boaz seen that and found out what all she did for Naomi, he said, "Well, come on over and you help thresh and you just take this." And he gave her some food to eat that he had already made and took it home. And so Ruth said, "The threshing floor, go back there tonight. He'll be there threshing. And so whenever he's done eating and drinking, he will go lay down, and you go lay down at his feet." Okay, girls, would you want to do that? Isn't this kind of a weird practice? She said, "I don't think we do this back in our country. We got to do this now." So she said, "Okay, whatever you said." So Boaz was out in the field, and he was taking care of his business there, and he went and ate, and so he went down and fell asleep in the grain field, or in a grain pile. That sounds pretty comfortable, doesn't it? Sounds a little itchy to me, but anyways, he laid down in the grain pile and went to sleep, and Ruth went over and laid down at his feet, just like Naomi had said. And he said she uncovered his feet, and she lay down by his feet. Now, something startled him when he woke up. "Okay, guys, what if you wake up in bed and there's a girl at your feet?" What do you think about that? That kind of startled you a little bit, and so it kind of freaked him out. And so he said, "Okay, what are you doing here?" And so he said, "If I may find favor or whatever." And so he was grateful for what he did, what she did for him. And so, "You are one of a noble character." That's pretty much prominent. Everybody knows that. So he gave her 6 measures of barley to take home. And he said, "I will take care of this. If you want me to be your redeemer," that's what she asked him to be. "But there's somebody ahead of me that I got to ask first." And so there was another guy that Boaz went to see. And this is kind of the tradition. The other guy had the first thing. So this is also buying the land back from Naomi that Elimelech had before they left. And they're supposed to buy that up so the money for the ladies or the orphan or the widow would have it there. And so he had, for this other guy had first chance, and he said, okay, this is Boaz said, this is what's going on. So either buy the land, you're first in line, you have the right to do that. And he said, yeah, I'll do that. Then Boaz says, well, on the day you buy it from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow. Wouldn't you like to be known as the dead man's widow? Yeah. So anyways, he said, it would be your duty to take care of her too, and probably marry her, I guess is what he's saying. And at this, he said, no, I don't want to do that. He said, I'll be in danger of my own estate. He didn't know who Ruth was, and he didn't know if she would be faithful or not, so he was a little worried about what would happen to his own estate and his own family and stuff. So back then, whenever he did a transfer for the redemption of property or whatever to become final, the one party that was going to give it or gave it to the other. So this is the method of legalizing the transaction. He'd take off his sandal and give it to the other guy. So the guardian redeemer said to Boaz, buy it yourself, and he removed his sandal and gave it to Boaz. So Boaz announced to the elders. The elders were watching that, so they knew what was going on. And so Boaz and Ruth got married. And so all live happily ever after. And of course, Naomi gains a son back to keep the family line going too. So, but anyways, to find what we're finding in the lineage of Jesus, and the lineage is like the family tree, the family line, or whatever. And so Ruth actually got put into this, okay, in the line of Jesus. Be Jesus' family or whatever. So I don't know if you remember. There's 5 women that are actually in this genealogy that are mentioned, and I don't know if you know any of them or not, but they are listed here in my Bible, and I'll get back to it here and find it. It's the names were Ruth, of course, Tamar, if you remember her. She was back in the Genesis. So she was the first woman out of the line that wouldn't be necessarily the person you would think that God would pick to be a woman in the line of Jesus. And also there was Rahab, and we'll be talking about her a little bit later here in a couple minutes. Bathsheba, which is the one David had stole from the one guy and sent him to war, so he died so he could take his wife. And so that was another woman. And the other one, of course, was Mary. So you had Ruth, Tamar, Rahab, Bathsheba, and Mary. Okay, Mary was the only one that was actually in the Jewish line. The rest of them were out of it. And that's significant because back in the day, you're kind of the Jewish people were kind of in their own little group, and they didn't really reach out to other people as far as sharing God with them. And they were kind of outside looking in type thing. I mean, some people did believe God, but it was awfully hard to be accepted by the Jewish people if you weren't a Jew. And so these women were put into line, and I think God did that because he wanted the world to realize that Jesus, whenever he comes, is for everybody. Nobody, you don't have to be this perfect person, because none of these women were perfect. Nobody in the family line was perfect. Of course, David was not perfect. And so if you remember Rahab, whenever she helped the Israelites defeat Jericho, she was the one that hid the spies, and then they saved her life. And then she became the wife of Salmon. And so Salmon was the father of Boaz. So I didn't realize it was that close together. I don't know how old Salmon was or whatever, but a whole book of Judges happened through all this before that. And so anyways, Salmon was the father of Boaz. Salmon married Rahab, and then Boaz was the father of Obed, and Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of David. So Ruth actually became David's great-grandmother. And so that's how God used her to get into the family lineage of genealogy of Jesus whenever he came. So I guess the lesson I want to be, Ruth was very loyal, dedicated to what her family, her mother-in-law, she left everything, just like Rahab did, left everything and followed God. Remember back in the lesson with Rahab, when you have to leave some things sometime to follow God. This time she had to leave her family and had to go back and went back with Naomi and started a new life. And that kind of characterizes what happens when we accept Christ. Like for people that haven't grown up in the church or whatever, and like most of us are growing up in the church, so we kind of know what's going on. But a lot of people don't grow up in the church, and they realize that it's God is for them too. But whenever they come in to know Jesus as their Savior, they have to put their own. You heard the verse that says, "You take your old self off and put on your new self." So you got to put away your old way of life. And so that means sometimes giving up your family, giving up your friends and whatever. And so, this is a choice that she had to make. And she chose it. And God used her in a very powerful way. And so whenever we make that decision to follow God, God is going to use us in a very powerful way. Some may be noticed more than others, but just realize that God is going to use you. And if you ask him in your heart and you want to serve God wholeheartedly, kind of like Ruth did, that he is going to use you in a very powerful way. So I want you to take that today as your lesson, and I really hope that you understand how important and how valuable your life is to God. He put you here for a purpose, and I want to keep telling you that and telling you that and telling you that because your life is very important to this world and to God. He has a purpose for your life that's really going to make a big difference if you choose to use it. So I hope everybody's doing well, keeping well, having fun in this time of whatever. I know you're not going to school. Most of you are doing, some of you are doing online, but almost finishing up. So I pray that you would have a great week and that you would always live for God, be a light for Jesus no matter where you are. There's people around you that need to see that light. So be a light for God and just be bold and be courageous for Jesus this week. Have a good week. Stay healthy, stay fit, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully we can get together soon because I can't wait to see you in class again. Like I say, you guys can see me in this video, but I can't see you. So anyways, it's just leaving a big hole in my heart, and I wanted to be able to see you guys soon. God bless and have a great week. We'll see you.